player. It's going to connect. Great impale as well, and I think Keria was there for a second, but now he is just gone. Chovy, can you actually stop something from happening here? Is it going to be Oner the last one down? Ulti from FLICKR finds two. He's out of there immediately. Kiin's able to try and chop them up, and there goes Oner, but they'll trade that any day of the week. But can they deal with the carries? That's the question. Chovy starting to pop up, and so is Gumayusi. Chovy's cut down. More arrows into his back, and he knows that it's done. Flashing forward. It's a triple for Guma, and that's
젠지는 정말 강력한 팀이고 저희가 높은 무대에서도 젠지에게 많이 패했었는데 작년에 징동도 좀 비슷한 느낌으로 되게 강한 팀이었지만 이긴 기억이 있기 때문에 저희 구마유시 캐리아 듀오는 세계 최고이기 때문에 당연히 이길 수 있다고 생각합니다.
Yes. Is it going to be a similar story? Well, Gumayusi was on that Ashe and did really, really well. And I just want to take a minute to talk about this entire first game, because as we were watching it, right, we go, this is kind of what you lay out. Gen G, such a good team, such good macro coming out of that early laning phase, having full control, but you're waiting in trepidation because T1 is clutch. T1's going to do something, and did they?
T1 Barons!
Let's go!
When I think of this game, and when everyone thinks of this game and they're looking back, they're going to think of the big Baron.
Yeah, why didn't Gen G?
Well, I mean, this was a really good call. You could see that Dragon was taken, Skarner was gone. You need to get the TP in, but FLICKR with this ultimate as well was clutch, and that's why it's part of the reliable Cisco network for every second counts. It was absolutely insane to see just how clean they were on this play.
And then look at the re-engage from Gen G here. They actually split. So Peyz is the big damage still alive. He goes down, focusing on Zeus, while Canyon flashed the other way to get a double Skarner ult, but there's no one there to follow up on his double Skarner ult. And so then T1 can get so much out of this. It's not just a T1 like sneak Baron. It was over a 5,000 gold Baron power play with that Baron. They got all three of the secondary towers and more kills because of Guma's Ashe, able to hit the arrow on Canyon as he's like standing by the tower for even more gold, and it was just such a snowball.
I just think Ashe is a big pick, and maybe you should consider it instead of Renekton.
And a Gragas
yeah, that's what I really wanted to bring up in that fight. Gragas is such a good pick against what Gen G want to do. It's able to split up fights. Zeus had an insane performance on that pick. It's something we saw earlier in Swiss, and I'm so happy to see him bring it out again.
Yeah, it was, and the Renekton in comparison was kind of useless in conclusion.
mean, because you remember back to the early game too, the Gragas already showed up. Zeus outplay under tower during the lane swap. Got also Oner a bit ahead because he was able to get extra camps because Canyon was down there taking damage. So yeah, really big props to Zeus again on his Gragas.
I have a surprise video for you because someone's in the crowd who wasn't entertained, apparently. Let's take a look. I think maybe they should be scared, but they're not. Oh, did I just tease it and suck it? Look at Elk.
Oh,
The yawn!
Super cut. He's just.
Oh my god.
No! What's up with that?
maybe he was out last night. Who knows?
Oh, partying? Okay, I get it. It would be allowed. It would be allowed. Oh, this is not a replay, by the way. This is consecutively. Hey,
Oh my god, Al, come on.
I also,
Come on, man.
I like how Bin is locked in though. the whole time.
He's
Bin
like
is locked
laser
in.
Well,
focused.
as we know, he loves Zeus, so he needs
Oh,
to
that's true.
be
He's
infatuated with his
studying.
play.
He's studying. He's like, I need to pull out the Gragas next time.
yeah. Let's go back a little bit to the beginning of the game as well, because there were times, I guess, that T1 was in a position where they had to clutch it out later because it didn't necessarily go ideal around the Grubs or the Herald.
Yeah, and I think the second Grub fight is the most egregious one, I'll say, because there was really not a lot of reasons for them to fight over this 6th Grub. Obviously, yes, you do want to get that, but they already had the 5, and this was so easy for Gen G to just go in.
It's also that you have no smite on your jungler. Gen G have a smite, and you already had that opportunity to just push in bot because Zeus had TP'd late. So you had a ton of options there for T1, but then we come into the Rift Herald fight as well, and this was strange because you'd already had the double resets coming through from Gumayusi and FLICKR. They were going to be late, and to me it felt like T1 were just trying to push Gen G onto the top side of the map so they could collapse back onto mid wave and take the mid tower, but Keria oversteps and ends up getting caught out, and it completely falls apart for them.
Yeah, I felt like both of them were strange because the first one, Oner engaged onto the Leona there instead of even actually going for it, and then like you say, Keria's just standing around, and there's a Leona with the ultimate ready, so you have to expect that the attempt for the pick is going to come through.
Yeah, and I think the big thing coming out of that is I actually did like T1's look in the early lane swap. They seem to really, really know what they wanted to do. They used the Gragas pick, to your point, Chovy, where it's so hard to dive a Gragas even super early on. And so going forward, I'm interested to see what Gen G do. This was a risk, leaving the Yone pick open, picking the Renekton over the Ashe or something similar. So we'll see.
And that's why I want to keep my eyes on Keria coming into this game. He was a monster in this early stage, constantly roaming towards FLICKR, leaving Gumayusi by himself, getting that early control, and Lehends needs to control him. Lehends did not do a good job in the early stages, and now coming into game number 2, he needs to step up big time. He wasn't good in the last series, and now again is struggling against Keria.
I love it that you give this directive, that you call him out. I mean, it's true because, you know, this is only a game 1 in a best of 5, but every game counts for a reason. You're going in now with more information for T1. You can be happy with what you showed. Gen G's going to be on the blue side, and it's just, it's a chink in the armor already. And the question is, can you now fight back and make sure that they don't get you to your knees?
So exciting. What an exciting start to this series. I mean, an explosive big Baron. We saw, like we say, some stumbles in the very beginning of the game. But game number 2, we'll see the adjustments as they swap sides.
It will. Atlas, will Gumayusi finally die in this game 2?
I don't think so. I mean, I haven't seen anything that's going to prove that's going to happen, so I'm feeling that maybe he'll just cruise through this one as well. We'll see whether the Nexus dies, but I think that's going to go down before Guma does.
Yeah, Atlas is a fan, famously, of small sample sizes, but this we're getting up there. Okay, it's 8 games in a row
This is becoming
now.
a medium sample size. You know, this is getting real over here right now. So we'll just have to see. I think if T1 are going to win, it is going to be one of those games where they should be able to roll over. But I think that there's going to be a lot of adaptation moving into this Champ Select, brought to you by Omen and HyperX. As already, Gen G once again banning away the Xayah here, this time on the blue side.
And this should give us a really good indication of how this series is going to look like, because in game 1, Gen G were on red side and took a lot of risks. If T1 is able to get a 2-0 lead, breaking them on red side as well, it's going to be so much harder to fight back. Going to have to be a really big pivot as the smolder, even with the Yone not being in the game, is taken away.
Now, I do think that Gumayusi's pool at this World Championship is pretty much those AD carries on your screen. Now, admittedly, we've seen him play Caitlyn, we've seen him play Draven, but Ezreal and Kai'Sa, the usual de facto go-to meta AD carries that we're seeing often, are not his priority. The question then becomes, where does Ziggs fall on the totem pole? Because we saw how effective it was for Peyz and his ability to stall out the game, but is that something that T1 want to try and prioritize? And if they do, what do they then put mid lane to complement?
And I was going to say, this Skarner pick does seem to make a bit of sense based on how much Canyon has wanted to play it. The amount of success, though, isn't necessarily giving us a lot of joy. But what's the other option? It's now Caitlyn and Kindred.
Caitlyn, right.
All right, there we go. There are some AD
It's
carries.
Gumayusi. Well, I mean, of course, he's going to pick a lane-dominant AD carry. And the lane swap meta, I debate how effective it is. But the biggest surprise to me is the Kindred coming out from Oner as an answer into the Skarner.
That's some shades of 2022 that I'm seeing here with the Kate and Kindred. And do note, Nidalee this time around was not banned. And that is something that Canyon, we saw even in the series against FlyQuest, has very heavily relied upon. And Gen G, the Jax, obviously a good adaptation. The Renekton didn't really hit last time around. Is available this time as well.
It's also very good into double AD carry,
exactly. But the Ahri thus far hasn't really sparked a lot of confidence. FLICKR can just go for the Sylas, and I know it's a supposed counter pick, but that's not really how the games have played out thus far here at Worlds.
But if they wanted Gragas again, they had to take it right there. Gragas, decent matchup into the Jax, and if you have the Kindred, you kind of want to get things that are bad guys off your Lamsur's fight to get the most value, so that could have been another great pickup, but it's going to be the Braum instead. That is going to be just the power lane here for both Gumayusi and Keria, but they're going to need some engage from somewhere.
I mean, so the Lulu ban caught me off guard a little bit, but the logic is mainly Lulu's very good into Braum, and there's the realistic possibility of Peyz. We've already seen Twitch, not that I'm expecting Twitch in this draft, but a potential hyper carry to pair up alongside of Lulu could be an effective answer. So that's going to be taken away. The Galio going to be banned away as the idea between a potential Camille plus Galio plus Kindred combo coming out from T1. Bit of an old school, but definitely a classic. That respect, along with the Renata, now taken away by T1.
Yeah, it gives them some engage options as well. So trying to take those off the board as much as possible, as there is the Renata ban as well from T1's side. Of course, another option that's pretty good into the Braum.
Saw it as well in the BLG series, obviously in that game 4, Hanwha versus BLG. A lot of shenanigans happening with that. Galio, the Gragas, I do agree with you, Atlas, seems like a no-brainer, but that is not going to get taken away. That is good into Jax. Zeus just came off of a great game off of it, and it synergizes really well with that Kindred.
Maybe Gen.G has a plan into it, or something like that, because you could imagine that they do have it pretty fresh in their mind, that is a likely pickup. The Maokai going to be a consideration, though. That could be the support option or a top option.
We saw that from...
No, it's not going to be support. I don't think Braum jungle is going to quite be happening here.
Why am I blanking? It was Bree. Bree this week I saw it from yesterday. I think it's a pretty good matchup into the Jax, in all honesty, and you get so tanky. I don't love Maokai as an engage, just because it's so slow and it's very, like, slow. Sorry, slow, I said that twice.
It is slow, and possibly slow as well.
Yes, exactly, yes. I'm fascinated as to how they're going to round this draft out. You're expecting some sort of AP mage to come through. Gen.G kind of sticking to this idea of diving with Ahri, Kai'Sa.
Yeah. Give me the Blitzcrank. Do it, Lehends. Don't be scared.
No, I imagine it's going to be something like the Rell or the Leona.
Yeah. Rell makes a lot of sense. So they're effectively playing full dive into Braum, Kindred, and Maokai. Which
they are.
That does not sound great. If you are Gen.G, and I got to give credit to T1, I think Gen.G thus far have been very predictable in how they have drafted and the priorities that they've used. And some of these individual champions, they've just not looked that good. And Kiin on Jax, that's great. But Canyon on Skarner, Chovy's, Ahri, and Peyz, even going back to summer finals, wasn't really able to have the performance that I think you ideally would be looking for. And then you have a ton of comfort for T1. I think the only thing that you lack is engage, but the counter engage and your ability to be, if you're first in an objective, to deny any area access is out of this world.
I'm also kind of surprised because when we see 3 AD carry bans, like, the direction that Guma's going to go is quite predictable in a sense. And it feels like that they haven't really provided a good response to this Caitlyn. I guess the idea is that they get their hands on the Jax, which sure into AD carries is good, but I think your point is so potent in this game about you are very short range into Braum, Kindred, Maokai. I'm fascinated. Like, ultimately, T1's engage is very low. It's not the strongest. You're very reliant on Maokai, maybe Sylas stealing a good ult, maybe a Skarner ultimate or a Rell ultimate to start off a fight. But I think T1 have cooked, and I like the dish that they've prepared.
Yeah, no, I would agree. And I think that not having a lot of engage only matters if you lose the range battle. But I think they're doing okay in that regard.
That's true.
When that sort of is one of the concerns. And when you can throw saplings around to get as much information as possible, I mean, Zeus should be able to just face check anything that he would like later into the game because he's going to be a walking fortress. I think that once again, T1 are coming out of a draft looking really, really good. And this time it's on the red side. And Gen.G fans might need to start getting nervous unless they can find some angles. But it is now time to get onto the Rift and see whether they can put their money where their mouth is. So we jump into game 2.
The other thing is zone control. Caitlyn traps, Maokai saplings, as you highlighted. You said that Zeus could pretty much face check into anyone, right? Because, you know, he's Maokai, he's a tank, he can also use the saplings, a lot of safety. Good luck face checking into Braum, Caitlyn. Like, that is a horrifying thing to have to face check into. And the problem is that even if Gen.G is first on an objective, throw the Maokai ultimate, zone them off the objective. You then regain the space. Once you have the space, trap. Like, and now you've got to walk into us again. I think that the idea of playing around objectives, I'm going to be fascinated to see how Gen.G navigate their way through that. I think flanks and vision control is going to be so important for them.
Chovy's going to have a really good laning phase for starters. Did go, by the way, Gen.G loves the resolve tree, as we can see.
I mean, Chovy just loves grass.
He does love grass.
It's just another thing that he can access some dopamine from, you know?
So Chovy needs to do a good job. I also think that Kiin, if he does get his matchup, should be able to get the shove. But the problem is you don't really want to 2v2 as Kai'Sa Rell into the Cade Braum. So you're incentivized to lane swap so that your bot lane can survive, but also you kind of want the Jax to match the Maokai, because Maokai early doesn't really get to do a whole lot. It looks like it is actually T1 that is going for the swap here initially, playing 2v2 mid.
You'll notice that Guma was hovering around mid for quite a while, which means that he was quite late to the top wave. On top of that, Zeus was denied from farm on the bot side of the map. So already this lane swap isn't ideal, optimal for the way in which T1 is setting themselves up for success. Keria has been hovering around mid. He's going to get level 2 very quickly. He's already on his transition over to bot lane, knowing that, hey, if I get one more minion, I'll level over. That's fine. I don't need to take any more XP away from FLICKR. Jungler pathing topside, those kind of you'd expect Oner, which means that the threat of the dive is coming.
Yep, Keria is going to get stunned up here by Lehends as he makes his way in level 2. Only level 1 for Keria. He's burning down. He's dead. That is going to be first blood going over to Canyon, and they'll take some plates to boot because Zeus now finds himself in a whole lot of trouble. Might have a twisted advance to try and outplay some stuff. That arcade smash was pretty good, or the bramble smash as it's known now, as Canyon underneath this turret has to flash. He's able to dodge the turret shot as a couple more autos are needed. It's Peyz that locks it down, almost dies, and somehow they navigate the dive.
Game number 1, the dive of disaster. Game number 2 puts Gen.G back on the right track. A kill for Peyz, and so many resources for T1 going to waste.
I mean, that was perfect execution from Gen.G. They punish the rotation from Keria. They get him before he gets level 2, and then they manage the tower aggro phenomenally. This is the Gen.G we were expecting.
And this is exactly the Gen.G that we need to see in this game if we want it to get to a best of 3.
Which we do.
They have to start early if they want to get some of these advantages. You already said that the script is written for how fights are going to go later on in the game, and it's not very fun if you're not on T1. So Gen.G, they have to be able to snowball this forward. We'll see what they can do, because it's not over yet. They need to get more leads.
Canyon is quite far behind in terms of camps, is the biggest downside for Gen.G. You'll notice that he's only managed to get through his bot side. Oh, flash once again from Keria. I say again, I mean, he didn't get a chance to flash earlier, but Canyon putting pressure down, I should say, onto Keria once again, as FLICKR going to be zoned away from what farm he can. He's doing a pretty good job so far in the mid lane matchup, but at the bottom of your screen, it's a suave shade of blue.
It is indeed. Gen.G finding a bunch of advantages. Excellent use of the word suave as well. Speaking of which, so was that just escape from Canyon. Decides, nope, I would prefer not to do this.
Canyon, one of the most often heard pieces of criticism for this player, which also ties into his strength, which is mid to late game impact and carry performances, is that he's not doing enough. I think this game he's overcompensating a little bit. Still sitting at 16 CS, but because of the early kill, once he picks up his camps that are going to be a decent level, should be able to very quickly catch back up in experience. And when it comes to the gold, he is still doing fine. Now, this early gold lead for Gen.G, a necessity, but good to see nonetheless. Because with how game number 1 played out, it felt like Gen.G was on track for what we've seen them do so many times, and T1 really threw them off.
And I will draw attention to our viewers who aren't as familiar with our format. Overlay, I should say. You can keep track of the Kindred stacks on the right-hand side of your screen. You can see that underneath the flash. And same for any of the stacking champions, which we don't have in this game. But,
yeah, Smolder was banned. Yeah.
Oner actually doing a decent job if we're going to compare Kindred performances that we've seen this Worlds. I think he is currently 13 minutes earlier on his first mark, which is pretty cool.
Yeah, not bad.
And Shu didn't even need that to win the game. So that says
Marks
something.
are overrated.
Yeah, we are really snowballing on the marks. If he keeps this one up, it could be
Relatively
completely ridiculous. Yeah, exactly.
Now Peyz has transitioned to the top side of the Rift. Guma's actually been moved over to mid. Zeus does not have the TP available. FLICKR has TP to top. I wonder if T1 is going to try and contest these grubs, but FLICKR setting up a trap.
Yeah. You've got Oner moving on over as well. Does get seen on that control ward, but finally Peyz gets that information. Has to use the ulti. Chains don't land because the flash has to come out, and Peyz is going to help now with these grubs. But that is not a lot of extra power here for Gen.G. Losing that flash, really important.
Peyz staying alive is crucial there. Otherwise, if they get that kill, T1 can then immediately collapse. You saw the rest of the members actually making their way over, but instead it's a big win for Gen.G. They get the grubs, and as mentioned, the Maokai is always going to have a lot of impact as FLICKR.
Yeah, could be in some trouble here as Lehends moving on over, finds a shattering strike. Ulti available here as FLICKR decides to go down, but Canyon's there to meet him. FLICKR now trying to change positions, but the plasma is stacked, and Peyz is going to get some revenge.
And Lehends, the reposition there to deny the ability for FLICKR to ult out with that Kai'Sa ult.
And on top of that, Canyon using his E, not onto FLICKR, but in his flash path, meaning that he had nowhere to go. Nice collapse from Gen.G. and they funnel that kill onto Peyz, crucially to get him further and further ahead. 2-0-0 now for the Kai'Sa, an 800 gold lead for him. And Gen G came out the gate swinging here in game 2.
And he's got some compound interest. That Ko is ticking away.
Yeah.
Gonna even further bolster the gold lead. And the biggest difference here has, I think, very clearly been Lehends' impact in game 1 versus game 2. And then the inverse, Keria. Keria on the Braum. It's just not really the same type of champion.
Lehends possibly looking for a little bit more here, but level 4, as is Keria. The AD carries that now actually have some levels in them, as we can see here. Some Berserker's Greaves done for Gumayusi. It's a bit of a battle towards the bottom side of the map. Zeus could be in trouble. Canyon, once again, just lawnmowing his way over. Oner going to get caught by the Brambles. Actually not, because of course there's Zeus's. I'm getting confused. Should be a jungler that has that ability. Kiin jumping back though. I don't know about that one, but he has the counter-strike. Zeus now looking for an opportunity here, but Kiin looks like he's out. Canyon now the one moving forward, but Oner is continuing these autos. The Dance of Arrows can get him in range as they get the Bramble Smash to slow Canyon down. Impale's going to be dodged beautifully. Counter-strike for the stun. Canyon on about 1 health, and Oner cannot dive the turret.
Not even close. Canyon holds on to his flash and makes sure that he keeps that summoner available, but what an almost turn from T1.
There seemed to be a bit of indecision on the side of Gen G about whether or not they wanted to commit to the play. But then when they finally decided to, Oner was like, all right, fine, let's take this 2 versus 2, and you saw the power of the Kindred early on in the skirmishes. No kill ends up dropping for either side, and Kiin's able to catch this massive top wave as well.
In the picture-in-picture, also, we were distracted by what was happening, but Chovy actually forced FLICKR's flash. I imagine went for an offensive ult play, got that summoner out, and that does mean that T1 for a possible contest on these grubs. Trying to deny the Jack 6 grubs, definitely something that you want to do, but 2 crucial summoners now no longer going to be available. Kiin also had to invest his flash, but Canyon still has his.
Yep. And one thing I want to draw everyone's attention to is the fact is something that we've spoken about earlier. It's a 2,000 gold lead here for Gen G. It has to be. The way team fights are going to work later in the game should be able to favor T1 if they don't fall too far behind. Right now, I think that Gen G are on pace for trying to create a snowball, but they cannot stop. Like, this is about continuing to press this advantage as much as they possibly can. First Dragon certainly going to help out with that. Next one going to be an Infernal. And Gen G just have to keep their foot on the gas.
I mean, I think it's important to realize that kind of on paper, Gen G's comp is easier to execute because it's just go forward.
Yeah.
Right? Press
go
R,
in and
engage.
kill.
Yeah, exactly. So T1 in the fights, we talked about all these tools that they have, but execution is key. Patience, cutting backwards, leveraging your range, being able to sort of circumvent your way around all of the engage that Gen G's going to have. So if they get a lead, it becomes even harder to do that, and it can look even more dominating when Gen G is just forcing all of these plays.
Yeah, the fact that 2 out of the 3 kills are on Peyz as well is something that could be worrying, because yes, there's a range advantage for T1, but that reposition from the Killer Instinct can really allow Gen G, if Peyz is really strong in this game, to just clean up any situation where they can get a foothold. So things could go from bad to worse very, very quickly. That's getting ahead of ourselves, though. Let's have a look at how this mid-game is going to unfold. As already Canyon getting to work, trying to lock down 6 of these grubs. On vision right now, but we can see there's Kindred in the bottom lane, so it's not likely that a contest is going to work out.
And this all comes from Chovy's prio in mid. This time around actually is able to have that very oppressive laning phase, and FLICKR just has to catch the wave. So I think T1 make the right call. Don't try to fight that. Instead, try to look for the cross map. Gen G with Peyz and Lehends arriving will be fine. Also want to highlight Oner now on 2 marks, found one on the Grump in top sides. But Oner, who I think was by far the most consistent member of T1 in summer, had a little bit of a dip in playoffs, but then has been exceptional once again. When you think of his best champions, they're champions with really high impact, but not necessarily the carries, right? It's the Vi moments, it's the Rell from last year.
You have to cast your mind back a very long way, right? It was when he was making his names on picks like Graves that you really remember him being able to carry from the jungle role. It's not something he's a stranger to. This is maybe something he's a bit rusty on.
It's just not something, like it's not about whether or not Oner can do it, but it's about how T1 as a team functions and has over the last couple of years.
I will say that when you look at this T1 draft, it definitely isn't typical T1. Like, seeing Zeus play a full-on tank It's not something that we often get to see. Keria, I always think of his supports as, I mean, he's the flashy playmaker. When he's on Braum,
we remember it, but not with a great look in our eye, you know?
So I will say that, like, this T1 composition is definitely a bit of a difference from what we normally see from them. And while we didn't see the best version of Gen G in Game 1, you have to wonder if T1 also trying something different out on the red side to see if they can catch Gen G off guard. So far in the early game, Gen G have been outperforming them in terms of the lane swap and punishing them on the side lanes. We'll see how things transition as we get into the mid game and these objectives become more important.
Yep, I think Gumayusi's positioning going to be extremely important, and the way Oner plays around the rest of his team to try and maximize these marks. Shun got to 4 stacks of the Kindred mark at 28 minutes and 42 seconds. See whether Oner can get a little bit higher than that, because it's the next few that are going to be the most important. Of course, remember guys, 4 stacks on your Kindred marks, that's when you get the big old range boost and you're feeling really good about it. But Gen G right now utilizing 6 grubs to smash down this turret. It's not a race this time. Yeah, T1 just didn't even really start.
It's also the biggest boost, and it's the only one that's actually essential. You know, everything past that is nice, but particularly, Lehends.
Yeah, possible catch here onto Keria once again. He shows them the door, but Peyz says, no, I'm not going to get caught by that one. One more auto attack, but there's the Lamb's Respite, and Oner is going to be able to save Keria. He actually walks out so that he doesn't get tagged.
I like the aggression there from Gen G. Keria, thanks to Oner's ultimate, is able to get him away to safety. But Keria, very close to losing his life, and you can see how much control Gen G have over the map. That bottom side is just littered with wards, and it just goes to show the way in which they set up the pressure onto bot. They had control over mid, transition that priority, and then they converted it into an easy objective setup. All of the early game objectives have gone the way of Gen G, and now they return their bot lane to mid, ready for the Rift Herald.
The thing that I'm looking at is still just going to be Oner. As this game goes on, you can see he's got a gigantic lead as far as farm is concerned, but it is still Canyon. With these early kills, with the amount of objectives that they've been able to lock down, does have a slight gold advantage, but it is very, very slight. And Oner is a large proponent of where the damage is going to come from in this game from T1. And as that range increases, his lethality will increase as well. Not the stat, just in general. It's an awkward word to use in League of Legends. I apologize, but that's going to be Rift Herald going on over to Gen G as well. A monopoly on these objectives so far in this game as Keria's flashing on over. Lehends could be in trouble. Shattering Strike going to hold him in place as FLICKR wants to be able to get a piece of this. He's not going to get the kill. That's going to go to Oner as T1 do manage to get their first kill of the game.
Really nicely done there by T1. So Gen G started up the Herald as a hold that thought we might have a collapse imminent here.
Yeah, you've got Zeus throwing down the Nature's Grasp, looking to try and catch them in place, but Gen G, they just exit. They just
leave.
The move to the left. I like the approach.
Not too bothered there. Kiin will get the turret though. But T1 there identified we can't really fight for the Herald, and Chovy was alone in bot lane, so they read the play. Lehends actually trying to cover for Chovy, but gets caught mid-rotation. It's going to be the Grubs and the Herald going over the Gen G, but the second Dragon of the game.
Oh, okay. He just wanders on in there. He'll flash away, so they at least get that. FLICKR also taking the outer turret on the bottom side, but that is so big. And now it's Hextech Soul this game.
Oner didn't have Smite. And the only way that Canyon knew was because he saw the W from Peyz go over the wall. He saw the HP. It didn't get smited, and so he's like, wait, I think there's an angle
Something's
here.
fishy.
Yeah, and so he just went for it. Beautiful play from Canyon. Great read from him. The Herald gets dropped in mid. And the player that we haven't talked about, but is getting monstrously scary, is Kiin in the top lane. He secured a full tower on the top side, uncontested. He's almost got a 1k gold lead. That Trinity Force is on the horizon. And we talked about it in the draft, right? Into double AD carry, even into a Sylas. This Jax is not really going to be afraid of anyone on the side lane. The Maokai is just going to do his best to hold him off.
Yep, it's going to be about how well T1 just holds Kiin at bay and tries to bide their time. But as the game stands right now, it is not looking good because this snowball is a-rolling. Gen G are capitalizing. But it's only 2.5k, something like that as far as gold lead is concerned. 6 Grubs and 2 Dragons are what they get for it, though, which is still very, very valuable, especially with the Soul being this Hextech.
In game number 1, T1 found the one win the way of the Baron Call, and it was a weird moment because it felt like Gen G was aware of it, yet still underestimated it. It brought them back in the game, and I think they're going to need a similar moment here because, as mentioned, this composition is really going to struggle as long as Gen G has that map control. Gen G is now the one that keeps shoving out the waves, keep having prio on the vision, and it is quite hard for T1 to find a good snap engage. They have a ton of CC once you actually get on top of them, but you don't have something like the Rell, like the Leona, like the Vi to really start off a team fight when Gen G isn't ready.
Well, we talked about how Gen G, if they start off an objective, T1 actually have a lot of ways to gain access onto the objective, even if they don't have the best engage, simply due to the fact that they have a Caitlyn plus the Maokai ultimate. But ideally, they're on the objective first. They have position with the Caitlyn traps. They're forcing the enemy to face check into their Braum, into their saplings. But T1 are never being given that opportunity, thanks to how well Gen G is snowballing this early game. They have a 3k gold lead. They're playing around their side lanes incredibly well. They've got a 4-1 setup right now. Fake is in top lane catching another wave. And Gen G are just very methodically suffocating T1 out of the map.
Yep, pulling them around, as you can see, moving over towards this inner turret in the mid lane. Ace in the hole does go down, fair bit of damage onto Lehends. Decent knock up there, but Keria had to invest the ultimate just to get them away from this turret. It's just Gen G trading up at this point in the game.
The turret stands though. Main thing for T1 is to not lose too much of that map control. You see them still moving around as a 5-man unit, maybe looking for some stragglers. Looking at the item finishes though, because of the gold leads afforded to Gen G. Peyz already on 2 items, and let's not forget this Kai'Sa. It's only going to get worse from free items onwards. When you get your revolves, when you're able to be a threat both as a poke champion as well as when you dive into the backline. As you mentioned, Vedi, I actually think there's a small window where the Maokai is like tanky enough to kind of deal with the Jax.
Sure.
But once Triforce is done, it gets a whole lot harder. And in a team fight, he'll be able to, but in the side lane, getting to match is going to be very, very hard.
And we need to talk about our Mercedes-Benz features matchup. You mentioned it already on the Peyz side, but Gumayusi is about to hit that trough. This is where he's going to have to dig deep and make sure he continues on that streak of his, because Infinity Edge is necessary. That 2-item spike, it feels better than it used to, but definitely wants 3 items, 4 items, needs armor penetration, Infinity Edge, and then he feels a whole lot better. It doesn't get better all that soon here for T1 in this game.
What you see though, T1 have been in this position before. They're trying to look for these small catches inside, as Zeus could be in big trouble here.
Yeah, it does have a sapling in position, actually a bit lazy.
That's not enough damage. Yeah,
not going to actually spot him. So yeah, Canyon versus Zeus would take a while, to say the least.
So right now, T1, I wonder if they even feel strong enough to contest the next dragon. They're setting up on the top side of the map. Vision is spotting them out completely as Oner is walking over wards right now, going to clear those out. Chovy respects the fact that he is on the weak side of the map as Lehends makes his way up towards the top side. Kiin continues to push in the bot wave. It looks like he's heading towards a Starak second, which to me, that's kind of the break point for Jax when he's got the Trinity Force and the Starax. He just becomes this really difficult to kill bruiser.
Yep, and I was actually going to say, if this was the Infinity Edge back for Gumayusi, then maybe there's an opportunity somewhere. He's not quite there, sitting on the pickaxe and the BF sword as the Baron is about to spawn. 10 seconds until that dragon. Is good sidestep there from Lehends. It was just going to be some support combat.
This is Gen G dealing with the fallout and trauma of last game. Look at the amount of vision control set up as they are heading towards this for a dragon. This time around, no opportunity. And T1's Baron damage is so much worse. Last time, they had an incredibly quick Baron. This time, that's not really going to be the case.
Yep. T1 not going to be able to get on over there. I think as soon as everyone saw that those timers were matched up, they were like, oh, T1's going to try for it. Gen G, of course, saw as well, and so they were able to stop that one from happening, only investing the limited resources to lock down Soul Point for themselves, continuing that monopoly on the neutral objectives. And this is really looking good for Gen G here in game number 2, which, if you're a fan of 5-game series, is pretty good.
It's, I mean, if you're ever interested in getting into super high-level league, both of these teams showcase through game 1 and game 2 how important the early game can be and how effectively you can snowball from that point depending on the strengths of your champions, because both teams have throughout this series demonstrated an effective way of how to play through that strength and snowball effectively. It's been a beauty to watch. It is a low kill game, but the map control, the decisions that Gen G have made, the tactical decisions and the execution has been near flawless, and it's resulted in a 3k gold lead 20 minutes in.
Many have credited one of Gen G's current coaching staff for being one of the original reasons why Vision in League of Legends got changed for exactly these type of games. And if you think the map is lit up now, go back, watch some old VODs.
I mean, Europe is very fond of when they nerf that, okay?
Yeah, let's
I
have
do
a
remember
conversation
that.
about control wars and how much they're bought and stuff like that. I think that's a good idea.
And knowing T1, what they're going to look for now is a quote-unquote, oh no, someone's caught in the side lane, followed by an immediate fight and an immediate collapse. They have dispatched of many teams when they were feeling like they were in a position of power. The problem is that generally Gen G doesn't really bite. They just let you play it out, keep their patience. It's the way they love to play, particularly when they are looking great on their carries, like in this game.
Crucially, T1's waiting for those spikes, and I believe Guma's about 200, about 100 gold off. So he needs another wave. He's waiting for that wave to be pushed in. The question is, can it... Well, he's going to get it in time, because the next Dragon's in 3 minutes, and I feel like Gen G's not the time to just sporadically force this Baron now. I mean, they could. It's a great window for them to do it, but Malignance is almost done for Chovy. I imagine he wants to get that finished before anything comes through. The Sun and Sky actually going to be the itemization from Kiin, also something we've been seeing from him. And then it goes into the Zhonya's third, which is also a very effective tool. So a lot of damage for this Jax in a side lane. Does make him a little squishier. So
feels like the 1v1 build.
Yeah.
Not going for that Sterg. So Kiin going
also
to be
big
midi.
murder AD carry build.
Yes.
Oh yeah.
Yes. And there is a couple of those. So
Yes.
they've got some options.
It's also the role kind of changes, because in longer fights, if you can get the proc of the
multiple
Sundered
times.
Sky on multiple people, it actually adds to your stim. As you're saying, Vedi, if he does get focused, with Sterix, you can get away from some really, really rough situations. Not really going to have the same level of playmaking as the Brandwin's now done for Canyon. Going to get so much value out of that. Steel caps on him as well. And I can guarantee you, FLICKR is not really interested in trying to kill a Skarner. But for the AD carries, it's going to be quite tough.
I think Peyz might be mega close to his Nash's. Does
Should
he have
be,
it
yeah.
yet?
Pretty close is now Keria gonna have to flash. Get out of the way of Canyon.
All right,
He's driving with a purpose, and that could be important moving forward, because we know that Keria loves to play engage Braum. We don't like looking at it necessarily, but now without flash, he's definitely not going to be able to utilize it. So Gen G, they have so much control of the tempo of this game. As Lehends gonna have to crash away from this one. T1 just attempting to bully them out of the river. Canyon moves on over and says no.
Item-wise, we're about as good as we're going to get, right? Both these teams should sit there and say, all right, Guma would love another item. He's not getting it. The Soul is spawning in about a minute's time. There will be nothing that he can buy in that window to be able to really be much stronger.
T1's not buying it.
What is Zeus
They're like,
up to?
you're not going for this.
Well, we'll see what they can actually get done here, as it's going to be Keria blowing up like a balloon.
They were not!
Yeah.
They were not doing it!
No. They did not want to, and now Gen G might be able to just head over towards this Baron and try and take that one down. Chovy still with that Spirit Rush running. FLICKR able to dodge out of the way.
Kiin.
Oh god, this flank angle is absolutely terrifying. Of course, all of the things about T1's team fight still kind of stand, but without the Braum, that's a big piece of that puzzle missing. We'll see what they're able to do here, as the nature is grasping. Does manage to stun up Canyon. He can get over that wall pretty comfortably, as now they've just singled out Zeus. So much damage. Lehends takes the kill. And T1, they had the trap set up, but Gen G don't want to go there. As now Oner trying to dash back. Kiin says, no, I'm going to buy time for my teammates, as Keria comes over. The Winter's Bite does nothing, and Kiin, he just wants to fight again. They'll take the Baron, and Kiin gets back into position. And now Canyon is just crashing into them. The two-man impale as well. And Gen G will destroy the Baron, destroy the team fight, and I think they're looking for the game. Gumayusi is not going to stay undying this Worlds.
It is a systematic dissection of T1. One by one they fall, one by one the objectives follow. Gen G, calm, calculated, just eviscerate T1.
Oh, and that's straight into Soul as well.
The Nexus might not fall, but this game really should be over. Baron here for Gen G. Hextech Soul on top of it. And let's be fair, this is what we all wanted.
Oh, yeah. And this is beautiful execution of this draft as well, from Gen G start to finish. As you can see, T1, 4 versus 5, desperation. But they knew if they let this Baron go, they're just going to slowly but surely lose the game.
What's crucial here is Gen G giving absolutely no window to flip the game. With Kindred in particular, it's so easy to get over the wall, and we see that he is just being systematically denied access, and the Kiin value, this Jax does so much into these AD carries, they just can't deal with him.
I think that Kiin is the biggest factor here.
Oh,
him just standing there, it's kind of like his aura is saying,
he's
try
menacing.
me, you know? And the problem is when you lose that Braum, you lose a crucial part of your front line. So there's no way for them to
He's
approach.
stressed out, man. Always fantastic to check out the Gen.G coaching stuff, but like you say, once again, back in position. Kiin with the counter-strike now on cooldown, but Gumayusi, oh my god. That was insane damage. We've also now got a Seeker's Arm Guard on Peyz. They really want to finish this game right here, right now. Look at that, another Void Seeker gonna connect. And Zap onto that Caitlyn. They can't walk up. Like how are they supposed to stop this freight train from crashing into their base? Gen.G have taken 2 inhibitors in a matter of seconds. It's a 10,000 gold lead plus here with this Hex deck. And T1 once again throwing out some grasping nature. They try to line up behind their tank, and it is absolutely working. Peyz is indeed unstoppable as Keria goes down. The Killer Instinct is named well as theirs is his second one. The Lambs respite going to keep them alive for now, but who's it healing? It's only healing Gen.G as they move to 1-1 in this series.
I like the idea of T1's composition, but in practice, the way in which Gen.G executed the lane swap, the way that they punished T1 in the early game, and then they just dismantled them from start to finish, objective control, the team fights. I mean, this is the series that we want.
Yeah, this is what we wanted.
And the impact of Lehends night and day between that game 1 and 2, and I think whichever support is going to have more impact is going to keep looking better and better in this series.
And what this series has so far been about is execution of your game plan from the draft. And so far it's been beautiful for both winners. Time for us to go to a break. When we get back, we'll see what they have cooked for us in Game 3.
I'll be your monster. This is necessary.
Red Bull gives you wings.